Good evening and welcome to C4 Operations Live. Welcome back. Thank you very much for coming back and checking out what we have to say tonight about background checks. We've talked to a lot of you lately about using this time as a training time so you can learn more. You can share this with your employees. You can share this with the rest of your HR staff, maybe a franchisor and a franchisee, whoever. We're open to that. And as always, if you have any questions, give us a call if this poses any questions for you. As far as tonight's topic, we're going to talk more about consent forms. I know we probably talked about that quite a few months ago, but there's been more questions about it. And why do we have to use your consent form with C4 Operations? Can we just use the ones we have? Can we change the language in it, etc., etc.? So let's talk about that. There is a reason that we ask you to use our C4 Operations consent form before you do a background check. You have the applicant sign and date our consent form. And with that, the reason that is there's been a lot of litigation, a lot of lawsuits over the last few years about these consent forms. What happened is there was a lawsuit where if the application is part of the the consent form is part of the application, then there was a lawsuit saying that that particular employer is confusing the applicant and they're signing away rights that they don't know about or whatever because it's part of the application. They think they have to be giving consent for this. And so because of that, the advice from the legal community to the background check community is basically make sure you have two separate pieces of paper. Your application is one and your consent form is another. Totally separate. If you're doing them in PDFs, maybe emailing people, again, make sure they're totally separate PDFs. Don't even include them in one PDF. But especially if you're handing them out to people, make sure they're two totally different documents. The application for employment, etc., and then the consent form. On the consent form, make sure you don't have any other information. Things like name, address, social security number, all of those types of things that we used to put on a consent form, and then that way you know what the information you'd have to do the background check. Well, now what we've done, if you've seen on our consent form, it has the FCRA rights paragraph, and it has a paragraph about them consenting to the background check, all the legal language in there, a signature line and a date line, and that's it. And that's really all the consent form should be. Please make sure, again, that you are using our form, that you're not combining the forms, because that's where the legal problems come. If you've used one from a long time ago, or even ours from a couple years ago, I would ask you to please update that. If you need to update that, you go to our front page, you log into C4, actually into our background check portion, like you're going to do a background check, not our website. You can get them there too, but when you're going to do a background check, you log in, and then on that front page there, your welcome screen, it says right there, click on these forms. You can click, and then you scroll down to either employment and volunteer or property management tenant screening consent forms. There's other forms on there for like certain states and specific form situations, but those are the two most common ones right there, the employee and volunteer being the most common. And so you can download that right there, use that, print that out, email that out to people, whatever it might be, but please make sure that you're using that form, and that is the most updated and legally compliant. We have had that vetted by a couple of different attorneys actually to make sure that we are good there and that you're good there and that we are all compliant with the FCRA as far as the consent forms. I know it sounds silly, I know it sounds like a very minor point, but when there's 13, 15, $17 million lawsuits out there over a consent form, it doesn't seem so minor anymore. So please make sure that you're using the right consent form, that you're having people sign and date that, and then when you are in our system, you actually upload that, scan that to your desktop or wherever you want to put your files, and then when you're in our system on about page 3 or 4 or screen 3 or 4 of our system, you'll see the box where you upload that. You can upload that right up into the system, and then it's right there in our system. So you don't have to worry about, you can keep the piece of paper if you want, but you don't have to because it's up in our system. So again, if you have any questions, please give us a call. It's one of those kind of be confusing situations, well, mine says this, can, mine say this, or, hey, can we change the language in your background or in your consent form? No, we ask you, please don't change that language, because again, it has been vetted by the attorneys and everything to say exactly what it needs to say, not too much, not too little, but exactly the right amount. All right? So again, give us a call if you got any questions. Thanks for joining us tonight, and that's what we got about consent forms. Have a great night.